Most people don't say they're afraid of being alone. They say they're bored. They say they're restless. They say they just don't like silence. But boredom is not the real problem, and restlessness is not the cause. The real fear is much deeper than that. Being alone removes distraction, and when distraction disappears, the mind is forced to face itself. That confrontation is what most people spend their lives avoiding, because solitude does not comfort you. It does not validate you, and it does not lie. It reveals, and what it reveals is often unfinished, unresolved, and uncomfortable. From a psychological perspective, humans are not taught to build identity internally. From childhood, identity is shaped through reaction, praise, criticism, tension, rejection. Over time, people begin to associate being seen with being real. When others are present, there is feedback. When there is feedback, the self feels stable. But when a person is alone, that feedback disappears. And without it, many people experience a subtle sense of psychological collapse. They don't know who they are without witnesses. This creates anxiety, not because solitude is dangerous, but because the identity was never self-sustaining. Humans rely heavily on social mirroring. Other people reflect back who we are, through facial expressions, through tone, through engagement. When that mirror is gone, the mind loses its reference point. This is why some people feel disoriented when alone. Not lonely, disoriented. They are used to defining themselves through response. So when no one responds, they feel invisible even to themselves. That invisibility is terrifying. For someone who has never learned to exist without approval. Silence is not empty. Silence removes filters. When external noise stops, internal noise increases. Thoughts that were suppressed begin to surface. Regrets that were postponed reappear. Emotions that were buried start to move. The brain, deprived of stimulation, turns inward, and what it finds there is not always pleasant. This is why silence feels threatening to so many people. Not because silence is painful, but because it exposes pain that was already there. Most people believe distraction is harmless, but psychologically, distraction is often a defense mechanism. Music, social media, television, constant conversation. These are not neutral habits. They function as emotional buffers. They prevent self-confrontation. The more someone depends on distraction, the more frightening solitude becomes. Because the longer emotions are avoided, the stronger they grow. Silence becomes unbearable, not because it is loud, but because it allows everything else to speak. Not everyone fears being alone. Some people actively seek it. This difference is not about personality type. It is about psychological familiarity. People who are comfortable alone have spent time facing themselves. They have processed discomfort slowly, rather than avoiding it entirely. They know what their thoughts sound like. They recognize their emotional patterns. So when they are alone, nothing feels unfamiliar. Solitude becomes a neutral state, not a threat. Society often labels highly social individuals as strong, but constant social engagement can sometimes indicate emotional dependence. People who cannot be alone often fear abandonment more than mistreatment. They tolerate disrespect because isolation feels worse. This is not weakness in character. It is fear in the nervous system, a fear that says, if I am alone, I will fall apart. Avoiding solitude comes at a price. It prevents emotional maturation. People who never sit alone struggle with boundaries, over-explain themselves, react emotionally instead of responding consciously. Their sense of self remains externally regulated. They are stable only when others are present. That is not connection. That is dependence. Solitude builds internal structure. When alone, you are forced to regulate yourself. There is no distraction to rely on, no validation to lean on. This strengthens emotional muscles. Gradually, identity becomes self-generated. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop fearing silence. Your reactions slow down. Your thoughts become clearer. You gain psychological gravity. Psychologically, solitude feels like a small death. To those who have never faced themselves, not a physical death, but an ego death. The false identity built on approval begins to dissolve. This dissolution feels like danger, but it is actually transformation. People don't fear being alone. They fear meeting themselves. Without distraction, solitude doesn't punish you. It introduces you to who you are, when nothing is covering the truth. And once that meeting happens, the fear slowly fades, because the unknown has become known. Solitude doesn't destroy people. Avoidance does.